to the episode number 73 of Q&A series with Suresh GP. Today, we're going to talk about a very important skill for business relationship management called conflict resolution skills. As you know, we have diversified teams, cross-functional teams working on a shared objectives to deliver business value. So a lot of times when we have different aspects being brought in, there are potential opportunities for having conflicts. So how do you first handle conflicts in your workplace? The first and foremost thing to look at in terms of conflict resolution is to understand and acknowledge that there is a conflict. What it means is there are different perspectives on looking at that particular problem statement, and each and every one has got a viewpoint. So acknowledging that there is a difference in opinion is a starting point of acknowledging the conflict. Number two, define the problem in a manner that everybody in the value chain understands it very clearly. So when you define the problem, you understand the impact, the stakeholders who would be positively or negatively getting impacted. Why is it important to provide a solution? What happens if you don't provide a solution for that particular problem? And what are some of the options? Now, when you start to have this conflict resolution part, it is more important to maintain a neutral ground, right? A lot of times people go there and forcefully force fit their opinions, and that's not a good way for a conducive relationship, right? Both of them who are talking about in terms of conversation can agree to disagree, but meet on the neutral ground and say what is the position. So look at yourself not being fully associated with the situation, but taking a neutral stand and thinking about it as a third person. Fourth point, let everyone have a say. It's so important for you to give an opportunity for the other person or the other stakeholders to express their opinion without any inhibition. And this is why it is also important to have a psychological safety environment where you can help to share an environment where people are open and receptive to new ideas. Then, five, we need to agree on, before we agree on a solution, determine each side's role in the solution. So, once we understand the different moving parts of the people whom we are talking with, you need to understand what kind of solution do you think is more feasible for us today. And based on the conversation, you decide to act upon it in consensus. Now that comes out to the next part of this question, or what are the best strategies to handle conflict resolution? Now, one of the best techniques to handle conflict resolution is the model of what we call as the Thomas Kilmann model of conflict resolution. Now, Thomas Kilmann framework talks about four key elements. Now, the first one is what we call as competing, right? Now, competing means that we are trying to compete for who is right? So typically the competing part makes most sense when you are doing a sport, right? Someone wins, someone loses. So you compete in a fair manner. You can also compete between one agile team to another agile team in terms of velocity, in terms of productivity, in terms of high performance. So it's probably a healthy competition to do things better, right? So competing means competing equally, and there is one person who wins, one person loses, right? Because not both of them can win in that particular argument. The second one, which I think is important and that's the most recommended one, is collaboration. Because when you collaborate, both the teams actually win. Now, this is also a mindset. Whenever we are trying to have a conversation, you cannot think about having the last laugh. Because if you are so much obsessed about yourself, then you will not be open to collaboration. So it's very important to put yourself into the perspective of the other business partner and see how we can collaborate to make this as win-win. So collaborating is one of the most important and recommended conflict resolution skills where both the parties stand to gain in a win-win mode. The third one is called avoiding. Now this is a little dangerous Because a lot of time people avoid having a conversation because they don't have the emotional energy to handle conflicts. So there are situations when avoiding conflict can be an appropriate response because both the parties are frustrated. They don't want to have continue this conversation because it's going to strain the relationship. So they kind of part ways or they put it aside, and that is part of what we call as avoiding mindset, right? So that's an area that you should think about as an option, but it's not helpful because none of the people are going to solve the problem, and you still have it on the background of the mind that the relationship is not good. The next conflict resolution type is called accommodating. Now, what is accommodating? So, this strategy of accommodating in conflict resolution is a smoothing technique, right? So, you give the opposite party exactly what it needs to resolve the problem, right? So, you can work in terms of short term, right? And then give you some temporary solution before you move on to a long term solution. So, it's basically trying to give another person to accommodate. And typically, I think parents have this habit of accommodating to the children because sometimes the children might be unreasonable, but they still accommodate it because they love them and they want to give them that space for them to go ahead and do what they want. The final one is what we call as compromising. Now, this strategy is also called as reconciling, right? Where you seek a mutual agreement to settle a dispute. Now, compromising is a lose-lose strategy because both the parties who are interacting with this will forfeit some of their needs in order to reach the agreement. Now, if you ask me, which one would you prefer to go ahead? There is no one size fits all approach. Each of these approaches of conflict resolution still makes sense. It's a question of applying it in the current context and seeing it how it can be more meaningfully dealt with. I hope that this episode on conflict resolution steps, techniques will be useful for you to go there and apply and take advantages today to go there and apply some of these techniques and see how you can handle conflict resolution more better in a more professional manner without having conflicts. So I wish you all the best in listening to the episodes and post your questions on next important question you would like to answer as part of Q&A series. Until then, thank you so much for watching and subscribe to this channel for further more episodes that could directly come to your inbox. Thank you very much.